List week continues here at SEC Unfiltered. These are my head coach rankings entering SEC Media Days as the countdown to kickoff continues. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, SECUnfiltered.com. We're brought to you by our friends over at RHOBACK. Guys, go to RHOBACK.com. Use promo code SECU for 20% off your first purchase. Again, that's our friends over at RHOBACK. Promo code SECU to get 20% off today. List week continues at SEC Unfiltered. These are my head coach rankings entering SEC Media Days as we continue to count down the days till toe meets leather. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. We will start at number 16. I've got Clark Lee of the Vanderbilt Commodores. And let me make this very clear. I'm a Clark Lee guy. I like Clark Lee. I think Clark Lee's a great fit for Vandy, right? He's a Vandy dude. But when you don't win a SEC game, and sure, he's somewhat a victim of his circumstance and his surroundings, you can question Vanderbilt's commitment to football. You can question everything about the Commodores football program. But somebody's got to be in that 16 spot. And guys, after the season they had in Nashville a season ago, in which we came, guys, this time last summer, we're talking about, man, Vandy's the best bet for their over win total. You know, they won 2 SEC games the year prior. They're going to overachieve again. They're going to upset this team and upset that team. And not only did they fall short of those expectations, they fell miserably short. Like when you lose to UNLV and they're trolling not just you, but the entire SEC on social media, that's going to knock you down a few pegs. So love Clark Lee. I'm a Clark Lee guy. Think he's a fit in Nashville, but he is 16 on my list. At number 15, I've got Jeff Lebby of the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Guys, I think Jeff Lebby can do really good things in Starkville. I think bringing an exciting brand of offensive football back to that program, I think, is going to be huge. The reason he's down here at the bottom of this list, because I know Mississippi State fans are going to take real issue with this. Guys, the reason he's down here, the man has never coached a game before as a head coach. He was a really good OC at Oklahoma, and I think that experience is only going to help. But when you've never coached a game, we just don't know what we are getting. I think a lot of his success there, guys, and a lot of his success as a head coach, like any other, is going to depend on hiring elite assistants. That hiring of Coleman Hutzler at DC, that one's going to be interesting. You go back and look at the history, guys, of first-time defensive coordinators in the SEC. It's not a great track record. So he needs that one to pan out positively. I think the offense is going to be fun. I think the offense is going to be exciting. I think it's going to be a much, much better fit, Lebby there in Starkville, than what, say, Zach Arnett was. But just for the simple fact, guys, that he's never been a head coach before, Jeff Lebby de facto is down here at the bottom of the list. I've got him at number 15. At number 14, I've got Billy Napier of the Florida Gators. You know, when they say that not all records are built equal, right? Like not all 5 and 7s are all the same. Not all 6 and 6 is the same. Not all 7 and 5 is the same. It's true. And I think Billy Napier's tenure in Gainesville is a great example of that from the standpoint of what does Napier need to do this year? He comes in, his seat is boiling. It's as much about how it looks as how many games they win, right? We've all heard about the schedule and can they get to 6 wins? God forbid, can they get to 7? My question is, can they play smart football? Because at some point, you show me who you are, and I'm going to believe you. And I think Billy Napier is a quality football coach. I think this man knows football. He got this Florida job for a reason. He won at Louisiana for a reason. But they have been a stupid football team during his tenure. Yes, they've been a stupid football team, making dumb mistakes, self-inflicted errors, shooting themselves in the foot. He's got 2 offensive line coaches. He got no special teams coach. He won't relinquish control of the offense. These are all decisions that are backfired. They got 2 guys wearing the same number. I mean, it's just one thing after another after another. Can Florida take major strides and go out there this season and show they're going to do the little things right? Because last year you saw Florida making year 1 mistakes in year 2. Whatever. You make year one mistakes in year three, and year three, essentially, in today's college football is looked at, hey, that's when you're supposed to pop. You're going to define who you are in year three. He desperately needs this football team to look organized, to look like they have a plan, and to play smart football. If you go 5-7 with this schedule, there's a decent chance he's back. But if you go 5-7 and the 7 losses and even the wins, you look silly, you look disorganized, you look foolish, you look stupid, it's going to be hard to justify you're the right guy there. So for all those reasons, I got to see more. I got Billy Napier at 14. At number 13, speaking of another head coach whose seat is boiling hot, I've got Sam Pittman of the Arkansas Razorbacks. You know, I was really disappointed in Sam Pittman last year. Not just because the record, not just because the ugly home losses, but guys, when you've got your football team at halftime watching a movie and just being so disassociated and discombobulated, and that surprised me. I didn't expect that. Also, the fact that his forte, the offensive line, was abysmal a season ago. We all know by now, guys, Pittman's a great culture fit. He's the head hog drinking cold beers. Like, we know he's a great fit there in Arkansas. But this is a massive year. Getting to a bowl game is pivotal for his future. Then I think he's got to get to 6 at minimum to be there in Fayetteville next season. The hiring of Bobby Petrino is key here. There's 2 ways to look at it. I think some will look at it as, hey, that was a desperation move. I think some will look at it, that was a genius move. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. I lean more towards it was a really, really good move. I think getting Bobby P back in Fayetteville, that was the last time, obviously, Arkansas was really good. It was a move that obviously excited the fan base, galvanized the fan base, got people excited for Razorbacks football. Maybe he and Taylon Green can do something, but they're going to have to. Sam Pittman's got to do a better job this year of keeping his team engaged, showing up in the big games, showing up in the home games. And if he doesn't, we're probably not going to be talking about Sam Pittman this time next year. At number 12, I've got Shane Beamer of the South Carolina Gamecocks. I don't think, guys, there was a head coach in the SEC whose stock was more negatively affected in 2023 than Shane Beamer's, for both things on the field and off the field. First, on the field, of course, guys, this time last year, we're talking about South Carolina coming off an 8-win season. They're on an upward trajectory. They just had back-to-back top 10 wins over Tennessee and Clemson, and they had, arguably the most talented quarterback in school history returning in Spencer Rattler. You have one of the best receivers in the country and Juice Wells returning. You had a veteran, talented defense coming back, and you lay an egg against North Carolina in week 1, and that leads you to a 5-7 disaster season there in Columbia. Now, off the field, it was nearly just as ugly. Everything at the podium, from the chain gang eating hot dogs to kicking a Gatorade cooler and breaking your foot, to shedding tears at the podium, to taking shots on social media and madness ensuing, it seemed, on a weekly basis. It was not a great year for Shane Beamer. The seat is starting to warm. It's not hot, but it's starting to warm. And anybody else who wants to tell you otherwise, they're just painting a garnet and black glasses rosy view for you. The pressure's starting to mount, folks, for sure. I think Shane Beamer can still be the long-term answer there. I think he's a perfect fit for South Carolina and that fan base. This year is pivotal, though. You got a young quarterback in Lenora Sellers. The defense has got to be much, much better than it was last year. The offensive line of scrimmage got to take a step forward. You need to get the best out of Rocket Sanders. I feel like that was a pickup that was sort of forgotten for whatever reason. You retain Clayton White. You need that to pan out. I don't think Shane Beamer's going anywhere this year, but if they have another lackluster season, if it's 5-7 or God forbid worse, it's going to make 2025 essentially the end-all be-all. So I think Shane Beamer, it's not really even just about his football team on the field taking steps forward and obviously winning more games and getting to a bowl game, but I'm curious to see, does Shane Beamer evolve and mature as a head coach? Because he's been immature. There's times at the podium where he has acted like a petulant child, for lack of a better way of putting it, with the things he said, the antics he's had, the rants he's gone on, the find some joy comments. Shane Beamer's got to find a way to not just handle his stuff on the field, but handle it off as well and become the leader that South Carolina football desperately needs. At number 11, I've got Mike Elko of the Texas A&M Aggies. Mike Elko, brand new head coach in the SEC. But guys, when you're able to win at Duke, that gives you a lot of brownie points in my mind. I think Elko's a great fit there in College Station because you had Jimbo Fisher, this flashy, wearing the sunglasses to media days, this kind of, wanted to act like Hollywood and play like, whatever. Mike Elko, I think, bringing this discipline, this hard-nosed attack, this hard-nosed culture, I think it's going to be a great thing there in College Station. There are some unknowns for sure. You're a first-time SEC head coach, but this isn't his first time around the block. I think Mike Elko is set up for a lot of success. And again, guys, you look back at what he did at Duke. I mean, he's going to have more talent than he's ever had before, even in this first year. Not your typical year one in College Station. So I like the upside with Mike Elko. Again, what we don't know is what we don't know. But looking at what he did at a place like Duke, you feel like that sets him up pretty well for success when you're talking about taking the reins of a big-time SEC program. At number 10, I've got Hugh Freeze of the Auburn Tigers. Hugh Freeze is an interesting one, guys. I still believe in Hugh Freeze from the standpoint of this is a dude that just knows how to win. He's won everywhere he's been. He knows how to win big games. He knows how to develop quarterbacks. That's the big thing I'm looking for this year with Peyton Thorne. As you all know by now, I'm not a big Peyton Thorne guy, but if anybody can get the best out of Peyton Thorne, it's going to be Hugh Freeze. Do we see more consistency from Hugh Freeze's football team this year? That's the number one thing. Do we see more consistency? Because last year, you had an Auburn program almost beat Georgia and Bama, but then turned around and lost to New Mexico State and got embarrassed by Maryland in the bowl game. So Hugh Freeze, I think, is still a high-quality SEC coach. Year one, I don't know that I think any worse or better of Hugh Freeze. It just year one was what it was, and I thought, you know what? Get your program to a bowl game. That's going to be a successful year one. But it was how it happened that was so perplexing, and how it happened is what makes it so difficult to evaluate Hugh Freeze. But I do still think a guy has a lot of experience, knows how to win big-time SEC games. For that reason, I got him at number 10. Number 9, I've got Mark Stoops of the Kentucky Wildcats. Guys, I still feel like Mark Stoops, we really don't appreciate enough what Mark Stoops has done in Lexington. I mean, this is Kentucky football. All due respect, by the way. I mean, you got to think about where Kentucky football was when he took over. And the fact that Kentucky football goes 7-5 in a regular season, we go, man, they didn't have a good year. They had a bad year. Kentucky fans used to dream about a 7-win season. Like, teams across the SEC used to mark Kentucky as an automatic W on their schedule. Now, when you see Kentucky, you're like, hey, that's going to be a battle. That's going to be a fight. And it's all because of Mark Stoops. Now, this is a huge year for Stoops, for his trajectory there at Kentucky. I think especially with the dynamic when you factor in all the stuff that happened with Texas A&M, when you factor in Mark Stoops last year speaking to his fan base, talking about, hey, we need more NIL money. I think this is a really important year for Mark Stoops to stay in the primarily good graces there in Lexington and show the folks, hey, it's still on a positive trajectory. Like, we're not falling off. Just a couple years ago, they were winning 10 games, winning 9 games. Hey, we can still be that program. Kentucky football can be a program that once every, 4 or 5 years, 3-4 years, whatever it might be, can at least knock on the door of the college football playoff, can compete for the college football playoff. So it's a big year in regards to trajectory for the Mark Stoops era there in Lexington. But I think still, guys, one of the best coaches in the SEC when it comes to taking less and doing more with it. Been doing that his entire career. At number 8, I've got Brent Venables of the Oklahoma Sooners. Brent Venables showed me a lot last year. And that 10-win season, bouncing back from a really difficult year one, the way the defense was able to take steps forward. I think, again, Venables a great fit there at OU. He's an OU guy. We know what he did at Clemson and what he did with that defense. I think he's finally got the defense. It's maybe not ideally exactly where he wants it because we're just going into year 3, but it's much further along than it was. He's got a star-studded defense. It's all about getting the offensive side figured out this year. But I like Brent Venables a lot, guys. We need to see his tenure play out more, I think, before we start talking about him as a top 4 or 5 coach in the SEC, obviously. But Brent Venables, I think a great fit there in Norman. I think he's the right guy. Just got the extension, obviously. I thought that was a good move by those in power. You want to present a strong front when you're going in the SEC. So I think Brent Venables, certainly a top half of the league coach. The only reason I have him down this low is it's just, hey, you're new in the SEC. It's about going out there and proving it. And I have a good feeling that he will. At number 7, I got Eli Drinkwitz of the Missouri Tigers, guys, after what Drink did last year. I mean, again, it's just crazy how much can change in a year. This time last year, not just from me, but from Mizzou folks, we're talking about Brady Cook should be benched. Eli Drinkwitz on the hot seat. He should probably go. This program's down and out. It's headed nowhere. How much can change in a calendar year, folks? Because my goodness, now we look at Eli Drinkwitz, folks. You should look at him and say, and the rivals still do, but he's goofy, he's silly, he acts out of pocket, out of character. Like, this guy is ridiculous. Now he's quirky, he's funny, he relates to players, right? Like, he's a players coach. It's funny how the perception can change in just one calendar year. That season they had last year was incredible. The question now is, guys, is that who Mizzou is going to be? Or was it a flash in the pan, or is it somewhere in the middle, right? Like, is Mizzou more of like a 8 to 9 win per year program, and maybe once every 2-3 years, 3-4 years, they're going to pop off and win 10, 11 games? And that's not a bad place to be, because before last year, they were a 500 program, and another 500 season might have gotten him let go, right? So Eli Drinkwitz at number 7. Love what he did last year. I think Eli Drinkwitz showed us a lot. What does the defense look like this year? Is Missouri now, how do you handle expectations? That's the big question. How does Mizzou handle expectations? Eli Drinkwitz at number 7 for me. At number 6, I've got Josh Heupel of the Tennessee Volunteers. Love what Heupel's building on Rocky Top. I mean, you've got a foolproof system in the offense. It's going to work every single year, year in, year out. You're going to run the football well. You're going to have a quarterback that puts up video game numbers. Now the defense is starting to come along, guys, in the front 7 there. With James Pierce Jr. leading the way. It's one of the best front 7s, I think, in the SEC. I think Tennessee is prime right there. They're one of those teams we're talking about as kind of a fringe playoff team fighting to get to 10 wins, right? And I know a lot of folks are going to balk. Eli Drinkwitz beat Josh Heupel. I think Josh Heupel's just done more over the long haul of his career. That's why I give Josh Heupel the nod ahead of Eli Drinkwitz. I know Drink just beat him last year, but what about all those whoopings the years prior? Like, we can't forget those happen as well. So I love what Josh Heupel is building. They're recruiting well. They've got great systems in place. I think Tennessee is set up really well, guys, not just for this year, but for the next 5-10 years. I think Heupel's the right guy. I'm not saying Tennessee football's back. It's going to be like 98 every year. But I think that old Tennessee, that embarrassing product they were putting out there for the last decade plus, 5-6 wins a year, I think that Tennessee is gone. I really do. I think Josh Heupel's the right guy in there in Knoxville. And number 5, I've got Lane Kiffin of the Ole Miss Rebels. Now, again, on-field and off-field reasons for this. On-field, Ole Miss was pretty damn good last year. He's also made Ole Miss one of the best brands in college football, one of the most exciting products with the way they play offense. I also give Lane Kiffin a ton of credit because he is very honest, very truthful, very real, and that's going to help him succeed. It is helping him succeed. He came out after that Georgia loss last year, guys, when they got blown out in Athens and said, you know what? We're not good enough in this area. We're not good enough in the trenches. We got to get better guys. They've got more 5-stars than us. Bottom line, point blank in a discussion. And you know what Ole Miss did? They listened. And he was able to go out there in the portal, rally these guys, get them to come to Ole Miss, and all of a sudden now, I mean, Ole Miss has got as high expectations, I think, guys, as anybody in the SEC. So I love Lane Kiffin's game. Listen, he's not for everybody. He's one of those guys, you love him if he's your coach. You probably hate him if he's not. But that's what makes Lane Kiffin so great. He's got one hell of a team lined up, and I've got him number 5 in my rankings. And number 4, I don't know why this dude is so undervalued. This might be putting him too low. I don't know. Maybe it is. But at number 4, I've got Brian Kelly of LSU. I just, and there's some people, they don't even want to put him in the top 10 of college football coaches. They don't want to put him in the top 5 of SEC coaches. Like, guys, what are we doing? What are we doing? Like, I don't know why it's so popular to just hate on Brian Kelly, throw shade on Brian Kelly. I'm not saying he's the best coach in the SEC, obviously. But he is a guy. He's a double-digit win season machine. And I know last year might have spoiled the opinion of him for some, right? You could say it was a missed opportunity because of the offense they had, and they had a historically bad defense that held them back. I mean, I understand that, but still, this is a guy that's led LSU to an SEC championship game in his first season. We know what he did at Notre Dame. You look at the way they're recruiting and building that program. Like, I don't think LSU's going away anytime soon. I don't think they're going anywhere under Brian Kelly. And I think he's a top 5 coach in the SEC. Again, you've guided your team to an SEC championship game. That says a lot. There aren't many others. Actually, I don't think there are any others below him on the list that have done that. Maybe Hugh Freeze did that. Am I forgetting? I don't think so, actually. So Brian Kelly, he has that going for him above everybody else, has led his team to an SEC title. So I don't know why it's so popular to hate on Brian Kelly. I don't get it. And I would venture to say, guys, not only is Brian Kelly a top 5 coach in the SEC, like I think Brian Kelly, I think before it's all said and done, he probably wins a national title at LSU. I think he's that good of a coach. I think it'll happen. At number 3, I've got Kalen DeBoer, the Alabama Crimson Tide. Guys, my feelings on Kalen DeBoer since he got hired in January and to now, they've only gone up. I only feel better about Kalen DeBoer to this point. I think what's really exciting for Bama fans and just really exciting to see, like, this is going to be the most talent Kalen DeBoer's ever had to work with. He has won literally everywhere he has been. Look at what he did with Washington, taking that program and just automatically getting the college football playoff. Took Michael Penix Jr., made him a Heisman Trophy finalist. I mean, all the dude does is win. And guys, the one thing that rivals were holding on to, that hoping, oh, he can't recruit, he's not going to recruit this out. Guys, they're number 2 right now in the 2025 recruiting rankings. So much for that. Now, they lost a lot in the portal. Nobody knows what we're getting from Alabama this year. Nobody knows what to expect. They lost so much in the portal. There's so many new faces. Everything's new at Bama. Everything's new, right? But Kalen DeBoer is one of the best in the business. But bottom line, point blank, he's one of the best in the business. I think he's going to show that at Bama. I don't see a major fall off at all. And I think Kalen DeBoer, again, you look at his track record, all he does is win. He's done it with less talented players. And now you're giving him Bama's roster, which still has the third highest blue chip ratio on that roster. You're telling me he's going to slip? Come on. So, again, what we don't know is what we don't know. Kalen DeBoer hasn't coached an SEC game yet, but I think still he's one of the best coaches in the SEC automatically. At number 2, I've got Steve Sarkisian of Texas, the Texas Longhorns. You talk about having the right guy to lead you into a new era of football. Steve Sarkisian's that guy. Now, listen, I know it was one season at Texas. I totally get that, guys. Like, I'm not going to be that person to tell you, hey, Texas is back. Ring it, shout it from the rooftops. Texas is back. But I think realistically, when you look at Steve Sarkisian's career, when you look at the way he's building Texas, when you look at the way they're set up this year going in the SEC, I think he understands. They've been building for a couple years. They've transformed the line of scrimmage. They're built now in the trenches to win in the SEC. They've got the quarterback of the now, and they've got the quarterback of the future. They're using the portal. I mean, Texas is doing everything correctly, in my opinion. It starts with the head man. It starts with Steve Sarkisian, a guy that was taking on Kalen DeBoer in that college football playoff last year. I know he hasn't coached an SEC game technically yet, hasn't been to an SEC title yet, but there's a reason Texas is being considered as one of the favorites in the SEC, and it starts with the way that Sark has built this program. And at number 1, I've got Kirby Smart of the Georgia Bulldogs. And this one shouldn't come as a surprise at all, guys. Kirby Smart, he's not just the best head coach in the SEC. He's the best head coach in college football. You know, it's hard to believe that anybody could take what Nick Saban was doing and do it even better. I think that's what Kirby's doing, though. I mean, really, truly, when you look at the way they're building their program, the way everything with Georgia's buttoned up. Everything. The only thing you might be critical of is, hey, they still probably have a little too much off-field issues. But, I mean, outside of that, man, they're as buttoned up as anybody. They've got it all figured out. They're recruiting at an elite level. You know, they're very strategic with the portal. Where, like, they don't lean on the portal. They don't need the portal. But when they see a guy they like or they see a guy they want, they go get him, right? And then you look at just, guys, the game day coaching. There's no better master motivator, whether it be pregame, halftime, or postgame. There's no better motivator in college football. There's nobody who can get his team ready to play in a big game or play in a game in general. There's nobody better than Kirby Smart. There's just nobody better at that. So from everything, guys, from roster building to roster retention to, you know, game day operations to, you know, on-field performance, obviously, handling his program, there's not a better head coach in not just the SEC, but in all of college football than Georgia's Kirby Smart. So, guys, how would you rank the head coaches of the SEC? Do you agree with my list? Do you disagree? Would you shuffle these up a little bit? Is somebody too high, too low? How would you rank the head coaches of the SEC heading into SEC Media Days? Guys, that's going to do all for me. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get your podcast. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. Until next time, guys, I'm Chris Fiddles of SEC Unfiltered. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, and we'll catch you on the other side.